Hello everyone, I'm Duncan Fraser, founder of the charity Useful and Kind. And Useful and Kind is trying to help especially young people to be more pro-social and to think about how they can be both of utility and generosity in the world. And it seems to me that never has there been more of a challenge to that and more of a need for that than right now, as we're all struggling to help ourselves and to help others and to make meaning of the situation, to try to deal with all the practical things whilst really beginning to be aware of the psychological and emotional challenges to us. And so, of course, we're all thinking about how can we do that? How can we be useful and kind to each other? So I thought that it might be helpful if I just shared some of the ideas over the coming days that have informed our thinking and the way we help young people. And the simple question, and the question that we've tested to be most effective, is simply that: how can I be most useful and kind? So I'd invite you just to reflect for a moment on that question for yourself. So it's not just kind, there's a lot of material out in the world at the moment about how to be kind and compassionate. But I'd invite you to think of Rosa Parks, sat on the bus all those decades ago, knowing that she was angry when she was asked to stand up. If she knew then what we know now, she'd know where that anger was located in her body. She'd feel compassion towards the person asking her to stand up. But should she have stood up? Well, we think no. We think that social change comes from that combination of utility and generosity. But I just thought we'd start today having a look at the model that we've come up with and just focusing a little bit on one part of it. And it's called the SOW model, SOW, because we ask ourselves, how can we be useful and kind to ourselves, to others, and the world? And there are various subsections of this. Self, which we're going to look at in a little bit more detail today. Others, in three categories really. One, those that are easy to be useful and kind to. Allegedly our loved ones, maybe not if we're stuck in the house with them for a few months. The more difficult ones, how can we be useful and kind to those people who aren't useful and kind, put simply? And the third part of others is team or family or group. There's a lot of psychology that we know about the way in which teams can behave, and we will certainly be spending some time on that as we look, if you're a manager, at how you're being useful and kind to your colleagues that you're not actually in the same place as at the moment. And the third section is world. How do we be useful and kind to the world? And we'll look at that in a few days' time. So first, today, let's just spend a couple of minutes thinking about ourselves. How can we be useful and kind at the moment? Physically, if we're well, how can we stay well? What can we do? The way we eat, the way we exercise, the way we can be out in the world for our daily walk. So just think physically for yourself. Just take a moment now to be mindful. So just pay attention to the breathing. Just notice how that is. Notice the ways in which you can normally calm yourself through focusing on the breathing, the many breathing exercises in yoga, tai chi, mindfulness, any of those ancient techniques to help yourself be more present. This life-giving breath that's so precious, and so many people are noticing and feeling how precious that is at the moment. And then just turn your attention to your emotions. How can you be useful and kind to yourself? Are you fearful, not knowing what's going to happen, where your next money's coming from, where your next food is coming from? Are you angry? Angry when you see others out on the street who should be inside? Are you angry that those in authority didn't take action quick enough? Are you angry with yourself for not having done something that you feel you might have done? Just notice that anger and let it be. Are you sad? Are you sad at the idea of loss? Loss of loved ones, loss of connection, loss of purpose. We are programmed to reach out and help each other when we're sad. We often cry. If we see a baby in distress, we want to reach out and touch and hug and hold and offer love. And that's difficult at the moment. But we will be looking at some exercises to help us to find ways to be with that. And the final emotion is joy and happiness. How can we find in these moments of stillness and calm some connection to some deeper purpose? Ask yourself, how is the world better for me being in it? Is it my connection to people? Is it the things I do? Is it just the way I am in the world? Just have a sense of that spiritual connection, being useful and kind to yourself spiritually. And then just think about being creative. How can I use this time to make things that I otherwise wouldn't? Remember the joy, if you've had that pleasure of being with children and making things, painting, potato prints, making up games, just being that free child. You have time for that. Just reach out. There are plenty of examples on the internet at the moment of things that you can do. You can do with others, either virtually or with those you're sharing your life with in your space. So that's a little bit of how to be useful and kind to yourself. So I just invite you today to notice your breathing, is to look inside with what William Bloom calls kind, sparkling eyes, that look in with acceptance and grace, that look in with tenderness and love. And just offer yourself today, as we focus on self, the phrase, may I be well, happy, and free from suffering. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I reach out with love, and we'll join again over the coming days in sharing more ideas about how we can be useful and kind in the world. Stay well. Thank you.